Right, so we finished verse 183, where we were talking about fasting being prescribed upon the believers, just as it has been for those before, and the purpose being for taqwa. And now, obviously, we expressed in that verse that one feels a sense of trepidation and fear when taking on such a monumentous task as fasting, which we obviously can relate to at this moment with these very long days. And so, after mentioning that, and although Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sort of consoles the believers by saying, people have done it before you, and it's been a time-tested tradition, Allah says here, أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَاتٍ. Okay? What's odd about this verse, أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَاتٍ, is it's in a state of nasb. Do you see that? It's got a double feta on it, no al, so it takes two fetas, and when we have two fetas, we always have this alif alongside it. Ayyam being the plural of al-yawm, which is usually just an epoch of time. It's not necessarily 24 hours, but it's been used like that here. Al-yawm. And then ma'dudat is a passive participle. So, for example, we have the verb daraba, which means he hit. And then darib is a noun, which means someone who hits. Yeah. And that's what we call the ism fa'il, or the active participle in Arabic. And then we've got the madrub, which is the passive, which means the person who is being hit or has been hit. So daraba is the verb. Darib is a noun that's expressing the one doing it, the hitter, er. And madrub, the hit, the one who's been hit. So that's the passive. And so ma'dudat is a passive participle, and the passive participle is in the plural here. So you'll see it's got an alif and ta on the end, and the alif and ta indicates it's a feminine sound plural. So there's a few issues here. And notice, because it's a feminine sound plural, it's in a state of nasb, the fatha state, like this, because it's an adjective describing ayyam, but it takes a kasra because, remember, the feminine sound plural does not take fatha. So when it's in a state of nasb, it takes a kasra instead, and it takes two because it's got no al there. Okay, so that's in terms of the mechanics. So ayyam ma'dudat is very strange, this, because it seems like an isolated sentence, structure that doesn't seem to have a sentence to it. So perhaps that you may be God-fearing, and then literally what comes in? Specific days. Okay? What's that mean? And so there's a number of interpretations. Some said, this is weak though, that it's linked to tattaqun, i.e. you have fear of consciousness of, so it's the object of the verb here, and that's why it's in a state of nasb. So you are conscious of these specific days, or these countable days, literally. Adda means to count something individually. We've got a number of words for count in the Arabic. We've got like hasiba, and we've got ahsa, which means to count as well, and then we've got adda. So let's just look at ahsan adda. Ahsan means to surround something. Basically, you've got all the numbers there. So say you had a set of marbles and you had them all there. Adda is to count them out one by one once you've got them all. Okay, so ma'dudat means those that are counted out. Okay, and when you can count something, it sort of suggests that it's limited in number. So we say I can count those things on my fingers to say that it's not a lot of things. Okay, so these are countable days, i.e. not a lot of days. That's what's being suggested here. I.e. you're not going to fast the whole year or your lifetime. It's just a number of days. Okay, which indicates that it's a few. Next point here is that usually ayyam is a non-human plural. And if you remember in our studies, anything that's describing a non-human plural is in the feminine singular usually. So you'd assume that it would be ayyam ma'dudah, like that, in the feminine singular. But here we've got the feminine sound plural, which is usually reserved for human plurals. So why does Allah use that? When you use the feminine sound plural for a non-human plural, it indicates it's little. And usually one between 3 to 10, because remember, 1 is not a plural, and 2 is not a plural in Arabic, it's a dual, it's with 2. And so it's 3 to 10. Okay, that's 1. So that again indicates that it's not a lot. You might ask, well, hang on here. Ramadan's not 10 days. It's 30. Okay. So the scholars differ here. Some say this is not referring to the month of Ramadan. This is referring to the days that the Arabs and Muslims fasted before the legislation of the fast of Ramadan, i.e. the 10th of Muharram and the 3 white nights. It's a weak opinion that was actually obligatory, but it's been narrated. And then, as we said, when the Muslims came to Medina after a short while, fasting of Ramadan became obligatory, and those days, the 10th of Muharram, and the 3 white nights became supererogatory, voluntary acts. And so some say it's referring to those, which are, okay, four in number. But I think that's weak, to be honest, and I think it's referring to Ramadan, and it clarifies that really in the next verses that will be coming up. So it's just using this to say that even though they're 30, Allah will make them feel light upon you. Okay. And another usage of the feminine sound plural for something that's in a non-human plural, remember days is non-human, is to give it sort of grandeur and reverence as well. Ma'dudat. That stretch gives it a sound of veneration as well. Okay. So why is it, we come back to the question, why is it in a state of nasb? There's difference of opinion about this. Some have said that it's because fi has been omitted. In Arabic, I can say, for example, ana fil bayt fil yawm. Okay? I am in the house today. And fil yawm, fi is a preposition that comes that accompanies an adverb of time. A lot of the time, remember, adverb of time is when we ask the question, when? Okay, so when were you in the house? When are you in the house? Today. Okay, and I can omit the adverb, the preposition, and instead of it being yawmi, it becomes yawma now. Okay, once the preposition is taken away. And so, في أيام الصيام, so كتب عليكم الصيام في أيام معدودات. Fasting is be prescribed to you in a small countable number of days. So they say the fi goes back and is connected back to the fasting. Okay, that's one opinion. Another opinion is that it is the object of a verb that's been omitted. There's ellipsis here, which is sumu. It's a command. Fast, you lot. Ayyaman ma'dudat. Okay. Or that could be an adverb of time as well. Sumu fi ayyamin ma'dudat. So you could look at it 2 different ways there. So these are the 3 opinions of, so either it goes back to tattaqoon, which we said is weak, or it's an adverb of time where the fi's been omitted and so it's put into a state of nasb, because adverbs of times are put in a state of nasb, meaning in demarcated days, countable days. Or there's an omitted verb, sumu ayyama ma'dudat. And we know that in the Quran, when it leaves it open like that, it is possible that it's expressing all of those. That's the flexibility of the Arabic language. Whilst when you translate, though, if you were to translate, you are limited in your how you're going to convey that, whilst the Arabic is not. Okay. So then Allah says, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا. So now this fa, how do you translate this? This is a new fa for us. This is called fa. Oh, fa. Oh. Let's get my tafri'iyya. Okay. Fa tafri'iyya, which means the fa of, how can I say, tafri'i means to branch something off, literally. So it's going into details now. So fasting's been prescribed upon you in a countable amount of days, which are 30. And then the question rises, all of us? What about our circumstances? Some of us may find fasting difficult. And so now Allah is going to branch off and go into details and specify people who don't have to fast. Okay? So the general ruling is that everyone has to fast, who the laws of the religion are incumbent upon, i.e. someone who's reached puberty. Yep. And so Allah's going to say, no, not everybody. So for men, so who? And this is what we call a conditional sentence. If you clean your room, you get chocolate. But the chocolate's conditional on you cleaning your room. So it's a conditional sentence. So we've touched upon this a bit. So men who studies will pass. That's a conditional sentence. Let me just get this. So men. Kana. Okay, notice we've got the past here. Kana means was, literally. It's the verb that puts things into the past. So if I say, how would I say? Zaydun abun. So Zayd is a father. And you put kana in the sentence. Kana Zaydun aban. So it's like a verb. You've got a subject. And you've got an object. In Arabic it's a bit more complicated than that, but I like to keep it simple like this. So this is the object. Zayd was a father. So kana here literally means, and who was from you sick. Okay, but in conditional sentence, when you see conditional sentences and the past is being used, it expresses the present. There's no difference between the two. So فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا. There's abnormal sentence structure here as well, because you'd assume that the order is فَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا مِنْكُمْ, from amongst you. So whoever from amongst you, so notice the focus is on you lot. Okay, if there is one of you who is sick, marid. And marid, the root of this word, mim ra dad, is to have something thick that covers you and heavy, so that you're burdened by something and you're not so astute and aware of your surroundings. So that gives us an understanding of sickness here when one's fasting and struggling. If you're in that state where you can't function, and you can't function and focus, and it's not just some sort of tiredness, it's got to be some, real something that's really preventing you functioning in the day. Whoever's in that state. Okay, so that's the object of the verb. فَمَنْ كَانَ, whoever there is from amongst you, who is sick. Okay, so the first scenario. And here it means a temporary sickness, not a chronic illness. Because if it's a chronic illness, you don't have to fast. And that's clarified by what's coming next. فَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا or, and this is tafri'iyya as well. It's branching things out. So you're this or this or this or this. If it's a question, we use the particle am for or. Okay. So for example, هل أنت مريض, for example. صحيح. Are you sick or well? That's a question, a closed question. We use am in questions. But for situations like this, we just list in the categories. We use أو على سفر, or on a travel. Now, so these are two scenarios that Allah gives. First of all is sickness. So that's obviously people who are resident or people who are not. You're in a state that you feel ill, you can't fast, no problems. Okay? Well, I'm going to give you a solution. Or, and that's obviously there's hardship there. That's the connection. Or you're traveling. And traveling is not necessarily a hardship like illness, but you're preoccupied and it's stressful. And so it's permissible, even if you don't find hardship in travel, to not fast. Okay? Now, what's this ala mean? Because Allah could have said, فَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ فِي سَفَرٍ. Yeah? In a journey. Okay? But Allah uses ala. Okay? And as we saw in the previous verse, ala can denote a sense of difficulty. But here, the scholars mention what this is denoting here is that you are on the verge of traveling. And this is important because 3 of the schools of Sunni law state that if you wish on the first day that you are traveling, you have to decide whether you're going to not fast. You have to still be engaged, initiated the journey before the dawn. So say, for example, I was on a journey today. I can't break my fast because dawn's come in. So I'd have to leave basically before around 1ish, 2ish, depending on when you're actually starting your fasts. And you decide, I'm not going to fast today. And you've actually left the perimeters of your city around 1 or 2 before Fajr. Then you can decide not to fast. However, if you are going to travel after Fajr comes in, that day that you actually initiate and you're still not you haven't started your journey, you have to fast. And then obviously if you really, really struggle and you can't function, you can break it and there's no penalty there. There's no kafara. You have to make the day up, obviously. But on the other, once you've become a legal traveller, i.e. you're on the move, or when you get to a place, you're going to be there for less than 4 days if you're a Shafi'i, Maliki, or Hanbali, I'm not sure about the Hanbali school, or 15 days if you follow the Hanafi school, then you can decide whether you're going to fast each day. You have that choice. Okay. The scholars differ here. What's preferable? Some say it's preferable to fast. Others say it's preferable to take dispensation, not fast. Others say you just have a choice. Okay. Imam Abu Hanifa has the position that it's better to fast if you can. Okay. But there's leeway there. And notice it's indefinite safar. So, and if you are on any kind of safar, any kind of journey, okay, safara means to reveal something, to expose. Because when you journey, you are things are being unveiled to you that you normally wouldn't see. You see new things. Also, as they say, you get to see your true character because you get irritated when you're traveling. You get difficulties, and so people get to know your true nature. So it's quite a beautiful word, safar, in that extent, with that meaning. So then Allah says, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ, or on the verge of travel. Okay, that would be the translation there. So notice the loss If you mistranslate there, if you say on a journey, it seems to indicate that you are on a journey at the time. And so you can break your fast, but there's details to that which I just explained. In the Hanbali school, they don't. In the Hanbali school, you can decide not to fast any time of the day. But my advice to people is that what you do is you start the day fasting, and if you really struggle, then you can break it. Because it's permissible to do that, and there's no atonement, there's no kafara for that, but you have to make the day up. So that's the first clause there. First part of the clause. So فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيدًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ. And then we've got this fa here. This is what we call the fa connection. In Arabic, we call it fa rabita, the fa connection. Okay? Fa rabita, which means the fa connection. If you remember your rules, if you have a conditional sentence, the second clause must start with a madi, a past verb, or a mudari, a present verb, or we translate it as madi being perfect and mudari being imperfect. Okay. If it doesn't start with one of those two, you need a fa, and it's like a comma. It acts like a comma. And here we've got a noun. It just says عدة من أيام أخر. Okay, so notice. So literally, and whoever from amongst you is sick or on the verge of engaging on any kind of journey, numbers from, literally, this says numbers from other days. Now, there's ellipsis here, there has to be. So they say, the ellipsis is فَعَلَيْهِ. So upon him, whoever that person is, عِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. Then upon him, the obligation upon him, is these days. So why has that been omitted here? Allah is brief in the Quran. He uses brevity when He needs to. And that's understood. And so Allah only uses words when He has to use words. If He doesn't need to, and the mind understands these things by context, then Allah will omit those things, because Allah is very concise in His words. He only says He only speaks what He needs to speak. Okay. When you omit things like that, it creates this sort of immediacy as well, a sense of immediacy. And so that could imply that you've got to make up those days, and you should hasten to do so. And there's differences of opinion in the schools of fiqh about this. The Hanafi schools say you can make them up any time, and they don't need to be continuous those days that you've missed. What we take from this is that everybody is obliged to make up their fasts if they don't perform them, regardless of their state. Even women who are pregnant or women who are breastfeeding, they will have to make those fasts up later. And I know that is difficult for some women who have continuous regular pregnancies, but they can try to do those in days that are very short. And remember that generally a woman who's breastfeeding or is pregnant, she still has to fast. But the advice I've been given by professionals is that in these long fasts, she shouldn't be fasting. But if it's winter days and they're short, then it's possible, and every individual should consult a professional who is learned in the religion as well, okay, a Muslim woman, and educated, if they can find such a person, to get advice about that situation. فَعِدَّةٌ, a number of, min here will translate as of, okay, أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ, of other days, okay, and this is another interesting place. So idda is a play on ma'dudat. We've got the same root there, and then notice this. We've got what's happened here? Ayyam, and then we've got an adjective describing it, which is ukhar, and ukhar comes from the word akhar. Akhar is the singular masculine. Akharu. Okay, the feminine is ukhra, and the plural is ukhar, like here. So ayyam is non-human plural, so you'd assume that we'd use a feminine singular, ukhra, there. But again, just like ma'dudat that I mentioned, we use the plural to signify that they are few. Okay. And also to be in concordance with this, with the play in the verse on this as well. Okay. Notice that ukhar as well is a semi-inflexible noun or semi-flexible, whichever way you want to look at it. And so it's in a state of jar. It should take a kasra like ayamin, but it's taking a fatha because semi-inflexible nouns don't take, never take kasra. They either take one fatha, they never take tanween as well, a double vowel. They either take one dhamma or one fatha. So in a state of jar, a semi-flexible word would take a fatha. And remember those categories like non-Arab names, women's names, men's names, Arab male names that end with extra alif and noon, like Za'faran, and Uthman, and so forth. And this is one of the categories which I don't think was in the Quran, but we've got words that are on this template. Oh. Fu'al. So like Umar. Umar is an Arab name. It's a man's name. You assume it to be Umarun, but it's Umaru. Okay, and so fu'al, because this is ukhar, like that, it's semi-inflexible as well. So that gives you an opportunity to recap those words that are semi-inflexible. Remember the plurals as well that end in an extra alif and hamza. And ones that that have a broken plural that has a alif in the middle as well, if you remember that. So these are semi-inflexible. So there you go, guys. So Allah's now going to give different situations for people when they're fasting. He's going to talk next about people who suffer from chronic illnesses, that they'll never be able to fast. And so this section is specific to people who can usually fast, but circumstances prevent them, or circumstances cause difficulty. And so Allah's given a dispensation and leeway there for people. So thank you very much. I'm hoping tomorrow I can do another session with you. So just look out for that. And I look forward to recapping with you your Arabic through these verses of the Quran from Surah Baqarah that pertain to fasting. Take care.